I'm Nate Looney. I first want to start off by thanking Food Tank and Daniel Foonberg for inviting me to come and speak to you guys today. It's definitely an honor, and I'm just thrilled to be here. So I'd like to start by saying that my route to farming wasn't a straight line. Even though I'm a fifth generation farmer, I grew up in Los Angeles. So our main crops tend to be Botox and palm trees. You know, there isn't very much as far in the line of row crops. Like I said, my intro into farming is a little different. I started by going to school like most people. I did a year in San Francisco State, and after that first year, I realized I was a little bored and decided to join the Army. So I joined the Army and did 8 years while I was in the military as military police. I was deployed to Iraq, but prior to Iraq, I was in New Orleans for Hurricane Katrina. I rode out the storm in the lower Ninth Ward before taking a Black Hawk to the Superdome. So my journey to farming definitely didn't start with farming, although my family's farm is in Louisiana, in northern Louisiana. So after being in the military, I loved my service. I loved being in the Army. I loved being a military police. And I thought it'd be my career, but I realized that in order for me to live an authentic life, I wouldn't be able to do that. So I left the military so I could change my gender, and then decided to go back to school. So I'm in my junior year of college of a business degree, and I realized that, like everyone else, what am I going to do? Am I going to go on and, go to grad school? Am I going to start a business? What am I going to do? Everybody goes through this. And I realized that if I went on to grad school, that would be a bigger bill, and I wasn't comfortable paying for student loans for undergrad and grad school with no guarantees of revenue after I was done. And talking to one of my professors, he said that everything that you're going to learn by going to grad school, you can learn it by starting your own business. I already knew I wanted to go into farming by that point, and so the day after graduation, I started the LLC, Westside Urban Gardens. So I did it a little bit backwards. Started the LLC, then I realized I don't know how to really farm. I've been watching YouTube videos and growing tomatoes in my closet using LED lights, but I didn't know how to operate a commercial farm. So I reached out to some veteran farming organizations, first the Veterans to Farmers, which is located in Denver, and I went and learned at Rebel Farms the basics of controlled environment agriculture. Then I knew that I wanted to go into aquaponics. And so in order to do that, I reached out to the Farmer Veteran Coalition. They were offering a 3-month internship at Ouroboros Aquaponic Farms up in the Bay Area. And so I went up there and did 3 months of an internship at Ouroboros. And while I was there, I had the opportunity to measure every inch and figure out my business plan for when I went back to LA, how I was going to operate my farm. So I was really grateful for that experience. And one thing that I realized as I was going through these veteran farming organizations, that there's something special about being a veteran farmer. Most people don't want to farm. It's a very difficult career path to choose. It's not an easy make or break, you're going to get rich. The environmental conditions aren't exactly the easiest. And for me, I found comfort in that because I enjoyed being out in the element. I enjoyed working with my hands. And in addition to that, as an entrepreneur, it meant that I had the ability to incorporate business. And so, working on my own, it enabled me to do a lot. Now that I wanted to start a farm in Los Angeles, that's not an easy thing to do. One, limited land. Number two, here I am, somebody fresh out of college. My access to income is limited. So where am I going to raise the money to start a controlled environment farm in Los Angeles? I found out about something called a Kiva loan. And in 10 days, I crowdfunded $10,000 to start my farm. Now, $10,000 seems like a lot of money on the outset, but I very quickly realized that $10,000 was not going to buy me a lot of land or get me a lot of land in Los Angeles. If anything, it was going to pay for maybe 3 months of land. I wouldn't even be able to buy seeds or the first piece of lumber I needed to build my system. So what I did is I found a space in Anaheim, California, which was about 35 miles away from my market center and where I wanted to be. But as a soldier, I said, you know what, this is the piece of land that I'm going to take. And for about a year, what I did was work about 80 hours a week, driving back and forth from Los Angeles to Anaheim. I refused to move to Anaheim and start operating out there because my goal was always to be in Los Angeles. And so within that time frame, within about the first 8 months of me being in operation, I was able to get into 5 different farmers markets in Los Angeles, to include the Santa Monica Farmers Market and the Beverly Hills Farmers Market. My primary crop is microgreens. Doing over 20 different varieties of microgreens and selling to restaurants and in the farmers markets. And what I realized is the easiest way or the best way for me to do it was to harvest on site. So I'd come to the farmer's market with my truck and, all these different trays of microgreens, and I'd set up the table and customers would come to me and I'd harvest it on site. I'd give them tastings and harvest on site. I didn't know what I was doing. There was no model for what I was doing. I had to figure it out on the fly. And as a matter of fact, I figured it out the first time I got to my first farmer's market. Yeah, I didn't even have the proper containers for samples or anything like that. So I figured it all out on the fly. But around May of this year, I had some issues with my family, whereas my mother got very sick, a relative that got really sick. So I had a lot of challenges in that sense. And unfortunately, in May, my mother passed away, and that made me take a step back and think about what I was doing and how I was going about my business and going about being a farmer. And what I realized is that as much as when you have a mission, you stick to it. And my mission was to operate this farm out of Anaheim, California. At best, I may be able to pay my student loans. And that's not what I envisioned when I started the business and started my farm. So I decided the best thing to do in this situation is take a step back, pull back out all the farmers markets, and then reassess and then start again. And so, if it wasn't for my military experience and understanding that sometimes the mission doesn't go exactly as you plan it, I wouldn't have been able to take that step back and say, hey, let me redo this. So as in closing, I just want to leave you with a few points of things that I've learned as a result of being a veteran farmer. The first one is, if you have a really great idea and people think you're crazy for it, still do it. Don't listen. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, on the hard days, don't quit. Just keep going. And that applies to farming. That applies to every aspect of life. On those hard days, just keep pushing. And third is always smile and have fun with what you do, because even if it's 130 degrees in a greenhouse, you can still smile and listen to some Lil Wayne. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate being here.